What if the most powerful response is no response at all? What if the best revenge isn't anger, isn't chasing, and isn't proving a point, but simply vanishing when they walk away, as if you meant nothing? They expect the usual anger and frustration, a desperate text late at night. They expect you to crack, to reach out, to beg, because that's what most people do. That's what they're prepared for. But the one thing they're not ready for is silence. Absolute, unshakable silence. Silence isn't weakness, it's power. It unsettles the mind and forces them to fill in the blanks. Right now, they think they have you figured out. They believe you're just waiting, that it's only a matter of time before you break. But when that message never comes, when you don't fight for their attention, when you simply disappear from their world, that's when the real pain begins. Doubt creeps in. Questions start to eat at them. Did I misjudge them? Did I actually mean so little? Are they already moving on? See, people don't regret losing what's easy to replace. They regret losing what felt solid, real, and irreplaceable. And nothing is more irreplaceable than someone who values themselves enough to walk away with dignity. A man who chases becomes forgettable. A man who disappears becomes unforgettable. This isn't about playing games or making them jealous. It's about becoming untouchable. It's about choosing yourself. The moment you stop seeking their validation, the moment you stop trying to change their mind, that's when you take back your power. And in that moment, they lose more than you ever did, because losing someone who needs you is easy. Losing someone who never needed you in the first place, that's what haunts people forever. And here's the real magic. When you master this, you don't just win this situation. You win at life, because the world bends to those who don't seek approval. So, if you're done being predictable, if you're ready to reclaim your strength, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the bell icon, and make sure you stay till the end, because I'm about to give you something that will change everything. Comment below. I am valuable. Say it, believe it, own it, because when you know your worth, the world has no choice but to respect it. Now let's begin. When they slip away, it feels like your entire universe shatters. Maybe you saw small warnings or little signs that you tried to ignore. Or maybe it happened in an instant, like a sudden gust of wind knocking down a fragile house of cards. 1 second they were right there, intertwined with your life, and the next, they're gone. It's an empty, suffocating kind of shock. You replay every conversation, every laugh shared, every promise whispered. You wonder why it all vanished so quickly. Why weren't you enough? What did you overlook? Why does it feel like the ground just caved in beneath you? This is the point where many people unravel. They scramble for answers, chase explanations, send impulsive messages at odd hours, every attempt dripping with desperation. But here's a truth that not everyone understands. Neediness drives people away faster than silence ever could. When you cling too tightly, you signal that your value depends on their presence, and reliance like that can poison attraction. The more you beg, the more they drift. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter your grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. Pain, though, isn't your enemy. It's a messenger. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Suffering lights a spark that can transform your life, but only if you recognize it as a catalyst, not a prison sentence. Picture a sword hammered by a blacksmith. Every strike of the hammer shapes the blade. toughening it and preparing it for battle. That's what pain can do for you. Forge you into something sharper, something stronger. Every admired figure in history has stumbled into their own moments of devastation. They were cast out, underestimated, left behind. What sets them apart is not their immunity to pain, but their ability to harness it. Some drew on heartbreak to fuel their art. Others channeled betrayal into feats of discovery or leadership. Look at heartbreak as a kind of fiery crucible. Yes, it burns, but it also refines. You can remain trapped in the flames, or you can shape yourself into a new form. Questions keep you awake at night. Should I have fought harder? Should I have apologized more? How can I make them see what they're missing? But those questions often lead to actions that only deepen your regret. When someone walks away, chasing doesn't bring them back. It just shows them how easily your peace unravels without their validation. The moment you learn to stand on your own, unattached to their approval, is the moment you begin your real transformation. Think of your pain as a lantern lighting a dark road. It reveals your vulnerabilities, your faults, and your strengths. It forces you to grow in ways comfort never could. Let that pain wake you up from complacency. Let it spark a fire in your soul that illuminates your path forward. This isn't about revenge or making them jealous. It's about becoming the person they never thought you could be. It's about owning your worth without constantly proving it. When you finally choose to let go, when you face the heartbreak without turning it into a personal failing, you discover a level of freedom you never knew existed. You understand that your value isn't dependent on who stays. It's shaped by how you rise after they leave. You refuse to drown in the sea of self-pity. Instead, you gather every jagged piece of your broken heart and forge yourself anew. That's the power of resilience, the quiet strength that endures long after they slip away. And that is how you transform pain into an unbreakable core, your own fortress against the storm. This is the stage where panic takes hold. The moment they slip away, fear creeps into every thought, and anxiety wraps around your mind like a vice. You replay the conversations in your head. Maybe you said something that pushed them away. Maybe you didn't say enough. Perhaps if you just explain yourself a little more, they'll realize how much you care. It's a frantic search for clarity in the face of an abrupt absence, and it's easy to lose your composure. People often call this the trap because it lures you in with the false hope that more words, more confessions, or more attention will somehow fix what's broken. Yet the harsh truth is that once someone has decided to walk away, they've likely made that choice well before they physically departed. Most of the time, they're not leaving on a sudden whim. They've been plotting their exit in the quieter moments, running scenarios in their mind, and finally concluding that you're not the path they want to take anymore. By the time you notice their distance, they may already have one foot out the door. This is exactly why many people respond with desperate attempts at reconciliation. Feeling someone slip away so silently can be terrifying. It feels like the rug has been pulled out from under you, and you scramble to regain balance by pleading, bargaining, or showcasing just how much you can give. Desperation, however, is fatal to respect. Picture someone stranded in quicksand. The more frantically they struggle, the faster they sink. In relationships, grasping at someone who is leaving often confirms the very reason they left in the first place. If they've grown distant, because they sensed a lack of confidence or an over-reliance on their presence. Responding with panic validates that fear. It's as if you're telling them, "You were right about me. I can't stand on my own." The paradox is that you want to show how much they matter, but in doing so, you sometimes reveal your greatest vulnerability, that you don't know how to function without them. The real question is, do they truly want to be convinced to stay? Think about it. If they reach the point of walking away, they might be looking for a sense of urgency or drama to inflate their own importance, or they might simply be done mentally and emotionally. Either way, chasing them with confessions and explanations doesn't rekindle the original spark. It's like trying to force a flower to bloom by pulling its petals apart. Any beauty that emerges will be forced and unnatural, and it won't last. True affection has to flow freely, not be coerced. There's a well-known principle that people crave what they can't easily possess. It's an echo of the lore of scarcity. The rarer something is, the more valuable it becomes. When you transform yourself into someone who doesn't beg for attention, someone who can walk away with your dignity intact, you change the entire dynamic. Instead of illustrating your dependence on them, you display self-reliance. Instead of proving you need them, you showcase that you're complete on your own. Picture a castle perched on a high cliff, self-sustained and unreachable, rather than a house with open windows begging for any passing traveler to come inside. Which image do you think commands more respect? Yet doubts can still gnaw at you. Isn't walking away cruel? Am I giving up too easily? Shouldn't I fight for what I love? It's natural to question your own motives, to wonder if you're doing the right thing by not explaining every tiny detail. But sometimes, the strongest act of love, both for yourself and for them, is letting go. If they've mentally checked out, clinging to them only prolongs the inevitable and robs both of you of the clarity needed to grow. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." If chasing them isn't truly rooted in respect for yourself and for them, then perhaps it's not the right move at all. Think of heartbreak as the forging of steel. When metal is heated to extreme temperatures and hammered repeatedly, it doesn't crumble. It becomes sharper and more resilient. Your own heartbreak can be that transformative heat, but not if you spend all your energy trying to hold on to someone who's determined to leave. Sometimes, the greatest strength you can show is the willingness to endure the flames of solitude for a while. No frantic messages, no last-minute speeches, no attempts at negotiation. In that silent space, you discover the depths of your own resilience. It can feel counterintuitive, because love stories teach us that grand gestures and tearful admissions are the way to win people back. But those cinematic moments rarely reflect real life. Real life often punishes desperation and rewards quiet confidence. When someone expects you to chase and finds only silence, they have to confront the reality that your world doesn't revolve around them. It's unsettling for them, and it might even force them to reevaluate their decision. Yet whether they come back or not becomes irrelevant if you've cultivated enough self-worth to move on without their validation. Over time, you'll notice that genuine respect, both from yourself and from others, blooms when you refuse to play the role of the desperate pursuer. You'll sense that you're becoming emotionally abundant, able to give your best without being drained or diminished if it's not returned. That's where true power lies, It's the kind of power that doesn't need to announce itself or shout for attention. Like an ancient tree standing tall in a storm, it remains unmoved by fleeting tempests. That quiet, rooted confidence is exactly what most people never expect to encounter when they walk away. It's what makes you the one who becomes harder to forget, rather than easier to replace. And so, the trap lures you with the promise that a few more texts or a passionate plea will reverse the decision. Don't fall for it. You are worth more than an argument for why someone should stay. Your energy, your time, and your peace of mind should not be spent in the hope of changing a choice they already made. True power emerges when you decide to stand firmly on your own path, unafraid of the silence that follows their departure. In that silence, you find yourself, and that is a discovery far more valuable than any fleeting reassurance someone else could ever offer. This is the turning point, the moment everything shifts, the moment pain stops being your weakness and becomes your fuel. Because pain is raw energy. It can either break you down or build you into something indestructible. The only difference is what you decide to do with it. Most people stay trapped, stuck in an endless cycle of obsession. They refresh old messages, stalk social media, analyze every little detail. They cling to the past, hoping that if they just watch closely enough, they'll find some hidden clue, some reason that will make it all make sense. But that's an illusion. It doesn't bring them back. It only keeps you shackled to something that no longer exists. A person who understands power doesn't run from pain. They don't drown it in distractions or numb it with cheap escapes. They stand in front of it, face it head on, and let it shape them. Think of a blade being sharpened against stone. Friction creates the edge. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without pressure, there is no transformation. Look in the mirror at that version of you, the one haunted by what's gone, the one questioning their worth. That's not who you were meant to be. That's only a temporary version, a cocoon before the real metamorphosis. But first, you have to let go, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the ability to see that their presence or absence doesn't define you. The moment you redirect your energy from chasing to building, from longing to evolving, that's when you truly step into your power. People regret leaving, not when you beg, not when you try to remind them of what you had, but when they see you thriving, when they realize the version of you they walked away from is nothing compared to the version they would have to face now. That's when regret seeps in, not because you tried to convince them of your worth, but because they now have to watch it from a distance. Ask yourself, what will you do with this pain? Will you let it consume you, or will you let it refine you? Because those who rise from heartbreak with a renewed sense of purpose don't just heal, they become untouchable. They become the ones who no longer look back because they've built something far greater ahead of them. This is the pivot. This is where you rise. Silence isn't merely the absence of noise. It's a declaration of strength and control. When someone you once valued leaves, they expect you to respond with hurt, to chase, to fill the void with frantic texts or constant checking of social media. They anticipate that your pain will be the proof they still hold power over you. Yet when you choose silence, when you don't text, don't like, and don't comment, you disrupt their expectations. Suddenly, they no longer have that steady feed of your sorrow to confirm their control. Instead, They're left with a gaping silence that forces them to wonder, to question the narrative they had constructed. Imagine watching a magician perform a vanishing act. One moment the figure is there, and in the blink of an eye, they're gone, leaving only mystery in their wake. That is the essence of your strategic disappearance. Instead of broadcasting your anguish, you let your silence work for you. It's not a sign of indifference, but rather a powerful move that says, I am more than this loss. As Friedrich Nietzsche once remarked, invisible threads are the strongest ties. By withdrawing your reactions, you allow your inner strength to manifest, unbound by the need for external validation. At first, the temptation to break that silence might be overwhelming. They might wonder, is it really possible that you don't miss them? Are you already moving on? These are natural questions that bubble up in the aftermath of separation. But consider this. Every time you resist the urge to reply to a casual post or a fleeting update, you are adding another brick to the fortress of your self-respect. You transform what could be a message of vulnerability into a resounding statement of independence. Think of it like the calm before a storm, the eerie quiet that unsettles the mind, making room for doubts and reflections that no loud declaration ever could. Some might ask, doesn't silence breed misunderstanding? Doesn't it seem like you're indifferent? On the contrary, silence can be the clearest expression of self-worth. It shows that you refuse to be dragged into a cycle of endless reactions that only serve to confirm your dependence on someone who no longer values your presence. Your silence is your answer to any criticism. It's the quiet power that reminds everyone, including yourself, that your worth isn't measured by someone else's validation. In the words of the ancient proverb, speech is silver, but silence is golden. Silence, when mastered, becomes a tool for psychological warfare, not to inflict harm, but to reclaim what is rightfully yours, your inner peace and dignity. It forces those who expected a reaction to confront the unexpected. They might begin to wonder if they've made a mistake, if the person they let go was, in fact, far more formidable than they ever imagined. Without your constant reassurance, they are compelled to fill in the blanks with their own insecurities and doubts, often magnifying the loss they now face. Consider the metaphor of a lighthouse standing tall amidst a raging storm. Its light doesn't shout, it simply endures, guiding ships through treacherous waters without a single word. That is the power of silence. It is unwavering, it is steady, and it commands respect. When you choose to let your silence speak for you, you signal that your life doesn't revolve around the need to chase or explain. Instead, you become the mystery that others can't quite decipher, the enigma whose absence resonates far louder than any poorly chosen words. There will be moments when you feel the pull to break that silence, to check in and see if they're still thinking of you. Yet every second you hold fast to your quiet resolve. You're solidifying your identity. You're saying, I am not defined by someone else's departure. I am whole on my own. And in that declaration, you find that your silence is not a void, it's a force. It's a reminder that sometimes the most potent response is not to respond at all. If you're ready to embrace this power, if you're ready to let your silence transform pain into an unspoken strength, then take this moment as your turning point. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because your journey toward mastery has only just begun. Remember, every time you choose silence over desperation, you affirm your worth. Your silence speaks louder than words, and it's a message that can transform not just your life, but the very way others perceive you. Embrace this strategy. Let it be your shield and your sword. In the quiet, you find a clarity that noise never offers. Let your absence become a testament to your resilience, and watch as the world around you shifts in response. Silence is not a gap to be filled. It's a powerful tool, a statement of intent, and a beacon of self-assurance. Let it echo through your life, a constant reminder that you are unshakable, unbreakable, and undeniably in control. This is where everything changes. This is where you stop looking back and start looking forward. They left, and that was the fire that needed to be lit. Now you rise, not to prove anything to them, not to make them regret, but because this moment has revealed something powerful. You were never meant to stay the same. Most people get stuck in the ashes, replaying old memories, mourning what's already gone. They spend months, sometimes years, trapped in the past, waiting for a return that will never come. But those who rise take that heartbreak and turn it into fuel. They don't sit around hoping. They don't waste time asking, what if? Instead, they build, they evolve, and they step into a version of themselves that their past self wouldn't even recognize. Think of the great warriors, the legends who shaped history. None of them became who they were without first being tested by fire. Pain is the ultimate teacher. It either destroys you or sharpens you into something unbreakable, like a sword in the forge. You could let the flames consume you, or you can let them refine you. Some might ask, but won't they forget about me if I move on? That's the wrong question. The real question is, why would I make my life about someone who already chose to leave? Every hour spent thinking about them is an hour stolen from your own future. An hour that could have been spent rebuilding, strengthening, and creating. You could be sharpening your mind, building your body, stacking your wealth, crafting a life so extraordinary that one day you'll look back and laugh at the thought of ever chasing what was never meant for you. And here's the truth. The best revenge is no revenge at all. The best revenge is transformation. Walking past them one day, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with absolute indifference. It's when they see you months from now, unbothered, thriving, moving in ways they never expected, and it dawns on them they lost something rare. That's when regret sets in. That's when doubt creeps in, not because you tried to make them feel it, but because they can see it. But by then, it won't even matter, because the version of you that was left behind no longer exists. That person has been burned to the ground, and in their place stands someone stronger, wiser, and untouchable. You don't rise from the ashes to get them back. You rise because you were always meant to. And that is how you win. They expect you to care, to still be watching, still hoping, still waiting for a chance to prove your worth. But when you show nothing, no reaction, no emotion, no interest, that's when the shift happens. Because nothing unsettles people more than indifference. Indifference means you've already won. It means you no longer need them. And a person who needs nothing attracts everything. This is the paradox of power. The moment you stop wanting something, it starts chasing you. The moment you stop proving your worth, the world starts recognizing it. Attraction isn't built on words. It's built on energy, and when your energy says, I do not care, they feel it. It lingers in their mind. It eats away at them. People expect to be missed. They expect their absence to leave a hole in your life. But when you move forward as if they never existed, when you don't check their updates, don't respond to their indirect attempts to pull you back, and don't acknowledge their presence at all, they feel invisible. And the moment they feel invisible to you is the moment they start craving your validation, not because you tried to make them feel that way, but because they assumed they had more control over your emotions than they actually did. That's the true power of detachment. It doesn't require effort, only discipline. Doubt creeps in. Shouldn't I say something? Shouldn't I explain myself? Shouldn't I get closure? No, you don't need closure. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to prove a damn thing. When you're truly indifferent, you hold all the power. Most people live their lives trying to be understood, trying to be heard, trying to be chosen. But the unshaken person, the one who doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and doesn't seek approval, that's the person who commands respect. That's the person others can't stop thinking about, because nothing is more powerful than walking away with your dignity intact, never looking back, and letting them realize too late that you were the one thing they couldn't afford to lose. Some say true power isn't about controlling others, but mastering yourself and your responses to life's trials. Now you stand at that crossroads. They return after sensing they're no longer the center of your universe. If you truly embody the Stoic mindset, your life isn't shaped by their reappearance, but by your unwavering choice to remain true to your new self. This is the ultimate test. Do you cling to a past that once limited you, or do you continue to evolve on your own terms? In the past, you might have waited anxiously for them to come back, imagining it would restore what you lost. But everything has changed. You're not fueled by bitterness or pride. You're simply no longer willing to settle. Epictetus taught that we can't control external events, only our reactions. They left for their reasons, and they're returning for their reasons. That has nothing to do with your value. Your true worth stands on its own, unshaken by anyone's departure or arrival. Think about a sculptor refining marble. Each strike is deliberate, chipping away the unnecessary pieces until only the masterpiece remains. Your heartbreak was that strike. It shaped you into a version of yourself that no longer revolves around someone else's approval. They might now feel regret or wonder if they misjudged you. Yet that's not your concern. Your only responsibility is to stay aligned with your growth, to protect the newfound clarity that emerged when you decided to become better. The question arises, should you let them back in? The stone stance is neither cold nor vengeful. It's simply grounded in self-awareness. If you choose to reconnect, do so from a place of strength, not longing. If you decide to walk away, let it be final, without bitterness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. As long as you act from calm conviction, rather than fear or resentment, you'll remain rooted in true, unshakable power." Many wonder, what if they truly changed? What if it could work this time? The Stoic answer is simple. It doesn't matter. Your growth can't hinge on external circumstances or someone else's promises. If they're genuine, their actions will align with your standards. Otherwise, you'll continue forward without regret. By valuing your own evolution above any fleeting reunion, you become immune to manipulation. They might knock on your door, but you decide if, when, and how it ever opens again. This is the paradox of true power. Once you stop chasing what you used to chase, they may start chasing you. But by then, you've discovered a reservoir of confidence and purpose that no longer craves external validation. Indifference isn't cruelty, it's clarity. It's the recognition that your life is far greater than one relationship. When you reach this point, you realize the ultimate power move isn't about revenge. It's about self-respect. You're no longer defined by who stays or who goes. If you're done settling for less than you deserve, if you're ready to embody the strength of a Stoic, let your actions speak for themselves. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Then comment below, "I choose myself," because in the grand scheme, the real victory isn't winning someone back. It's recognizing that you never needed their approval to become the person you are now. The moment you realize this, you're already free. That is the final piece of power, the Stoic choice to walk away. When they finally reappear, a fleeting like on an old post, a subtle message or a brief reaction, it's never by accident. It's a test. They're starting to feel the emptiness, the weight of their own choice. At first, they believed you'd crumble, that you'd be waiting in the shadows, desperate for another chance. But instead, you vanished. You transformed into someone they never expected, a person who moved on without looking back. Imagine a sculptor who, after a long period of chipping away at a rough block, reveals a masterpiece. That's you now. You've rebuilt yourself, polished your edges, and crafted a new identity from the remnants of what was left behind. Nothing rattles people more than the stark reality that the door they once walked out of might never swing open again. Their return is their silent plea, a sign of their dawning regret. But it's also a moment of truth for you. Some might wonder, why did they come back now? What do they expect? It's natural to have questions in the wake of such a reversal. Perhaps they're hoping that the old version of you, the one who still clung to their memory, will reappear. But that's where many falter. The moment they step back into your world, the temptation is to rush to respond with eagerness, to act as though their return is a favor bestowed upon you. But you are no one's consolation prize. As the saying goes, time changes everything, and the one who waits patiently transforms into gold. Your growth is your reward. Your transformation is the real victory. Every day spent evolving, physically, mentally, and emotionally, builds a fortress around your new self. You've learned that your worth isn't tied to someone else's return, and that's the most potent kind of power there is. When they make contact, you don't need to celebrate or rush to fill the space they left behind. You simply acknowledge the change. That silence, that quiet strength, shouts louder than any frantic response ever could. Your reaction, or the deliberate lack thereof, signals that the person they once knew is gone. The one they left behind, who placed them on a pedestal and waited in vain, is no longer part of your life. They may ask themselves, could I have done something differently? Did I lose a rare treasure? But by then, it won't matter. Your silent evolution has already rewritten the rules. Their return becomes a mirror, reflecting their own missteps and regrets. It's not about reclaiming what was lost. It's about affirming that the loss was never yours to begin with. The transformation you underwent is not just survival, it's triumph. You've replaced heartache with ambition, pain with progress. When they reach out, expecting the familiar responses of vulnerability or longing, they are met instead with the cool composure of someone who has reclaimed their life. Their attempts to bridge the gap only highlight the distance between who you were and who you've become. Remember, the most satisfying victory isn't about forcing someone back into your life. It's about standing tall in the knowledge that you're complete and whole without them. Every minute invested in your own evolution is a step away from the past that once defined you. Your comeback isn't a second chance for them. It's a celebration of your unstoppable journey. If you're ready to let your transformation speak for itself, if you're prepared to stand firm in the power you've built, then take this moment as your declaration. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And when you do, remember to echo this truth. I do not return to what broke me, ascend beyond the past. This is it, the final realization, the defining moment when everything becomes clear. You were never truly losing them, they were losing you. It may feel jarring at first, but understand that they didn't walk away from you. They walked away from an older version of you, the one who put them on a pedestal, who craved their validation, who didn't yet recognize the depth of their own worth. That past self is gone, burned away in the fires of transformation. What emerges is someone untouchable, an individual who will not chase, will not beg, and will not collapse under the weight of someone else's departure. Picture a phoenix rising from the ashes, feathers still aglow from the heat of the flames, completely transformed by the trials it has endured. That's your story now. The illusions and insecurities that once held you down have been consumed, leaving behind a powerful core that can withstand whatever life brings. You've grown too strong to let external factors, someone else's choices, rejections, or indifferences dictate your sense of self. As the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The heartbreak or disappointment that once threatened to break you has become the force propelling you forward, forging you into an untouchable being. It was never about winning them back. It was never about proving your worth to someone who decided to leave. Rather, it was about proving something to yourself, that you are whole on your own, that you can stand tall without anyone else's validation. Sometimes life sends us challenges that feel personal, but in truth, these challenges are part of a larger process of self-discovery. It's like a blacksmith hammering red-hot steel. Each blow feels harsh, yet it shapes the metal into a sword capable of cutting through doubt and fear. At this point, they may be just a memory, a reminder of what you once accepted, but will not accept any longer. You've learned the lesson. No one else determines your value. Your sense of self-worth doesn't hinge on another person's decision to stay or go. When you truly let go, when you step back and realize that you never needed them to complete you, that is the instant you break free. In that moment, you transition from feeling wounded to feeling liberated. You become the source of your own strength, your own inspiration. Some may ask, doesn't this lead to bitterness or a closed heart? That's where wisdom steps in. You're not bitter, you're better. You're not closed off, you're cautious. There's a significant difference between shutting the world out and recognizing your value so profoundly that you refuse to entertain anything less than respect, honesty, and genuine care. Indifference isn't about harboring resentments. It's about knowing you can flourish regardless of what or who left. It's the quiet certitude that you are self-sufficient and that you thrive whether someone stands by you or not. Perhaps you wonder, what if they regret leaving? What if they try to come back? The untouchable part of you realizes this. If they walked away once, they demonstrated that you were not a priority for them at the time. You've moved on, evolving beyond the need for their recognition. You've rebuilt your life, brick by brick, focusing on your growth, your discipline, your mindset, your future. Let them observe from afar if they choose to. Their regrets belong to them. Your progress belongs to you. Remember, your true reward isn't winning someone's attention. It's the transformation you've achieved in the process. The old version of you might have settled, might have begged for answers or closure. But the new you, the untouchable you, stands firmly on a foundation of self-respect. You've learned that closure is often just a myth. The real closure comes from within, from deciding you're done suffering and ready to invest in yourself. Visualize a towering oak tree in a storm. While the wind howls and branches bend, the roots remain strong. That's who you've become, rooted in your principles, unwavering in your worth. Life may send more storms, more heartbreaks, more rejections, but you've learned to weather them without breaking. You can bend, adapt, and continue to grow without losing your essence. Your transformation didn't happen for someone else. It happened for you. From here on out, life is on your terms. You pick who shares your space, who contributes to your life, and who merely remains in your memories. You're not out to prove yourself to those who left. You're out to honor yourself for surviving, for thriving, for rising. As Seneca once said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. And you've done more than merely live. You've evolved into someone unstoppable, unbreakable, and utterly self-reliant. If this message resonates, if you're ready to become that person who stands firm in their own power, take action now. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Declare your new path, and let everyone, including yourself, know that you have arrived at a place of unshakable resolve. Embrace the words, "I am the prize, I am the power." Because ultimately, the one who holds all the power is the one who needs nothing from anyone else. Not their approval, not their attention, and certainly not their pity. Stay strong, stay resilient, and never forget who you are. An individual forged by trials, refined by pain, and uplifted by self-discovery. In the end, it was never about them. It was always about you. About blossoming into the kind of person who radiates confidence and commands respect without ever having to demand it. That's what makes you untouchable. That is how you stand victorious, not by seeking revenge or playing games, but by becoming so focused, so grounded, and so powerful that no fragment of your past can ever diminish your worth. Now is your time. Make your statement. Continue on this journey of unwavering strength. You've earned it.